Hey there, this is Manga Studio Sensei, and I'm going to do a little tutorial on filling, just coloring and filling and using kind of a basic brush and kind of some of the layer features associated with them. This is relatively simple. It's not like super advanced or anything, but they're kind of hard to figure out without really knowing what they are. So yeah. Anyway, let's get started with the fill tool. Specifically with I use a modifier for the fill tool that actually looks at specific things. If you look at this lighthouse icon, it allows you to reference a reference layer. You set the reference layer over on your layer panel over here using that button on whatever layer you want to do. And so whenever you paint another layer, it actually takes into account the layer you put the lighthouse on and fills it as if it was on that layer, but it does it on a different layer, as you can see there. Basically, this is useful because it helps distance all your elements from one another, and that's important primarily because you want to actually just work on each element individually instead of having them bleed together. So next up, I'm going to try to color this inside a little bit. So I'm going to make a new layer right above my skin layer and start drawing a little bit, kind of like this pink stuff, to highlight places that I think need to be highlighted. Granted, don't follow this example for lighting because I am not actually thinking about a lighting source or anything. I'm just kind of going off what I think looks good, and frankly, that's not best advice. But generally speaking, I'm just doing this for the sake of just illustrating something because I'm going to make an egregious mistake pretty soon, and yeah, it'll be important. So I'm going to eventually color outside of this. If you'll notice that I swipe that and it goes outside of the skin. So what you do is you press that little button right there on the layer you're working on, and it will reference the layer right below it like a layer mask. Essentially, you won't be able to draw outside of this, outside of the skin layer right below it. So it allows me to easily kind of work on the edges without bleeding outside of it. That's really important just because retaining your lines, not when you're not line lines, your shapes for your colors and stuff is really one of the harder things to do manually. And it's like one press of a button, and with a little bit of decent organization, and you literally never have to worry about it ever again. So yeah, it's like that part of where I colored the hair. I mean, not the hair, the skin, right? If you need the hair to make it darker, yeah, that would have been a pain otherwise. I would have to be like really precise and poke at it and be like, ah. So yeah, it makes it a lot easier. So just get used to doing that kind of thing. So just make sure you press that button right above the layer, like your flat layer, and then just go crazy. So I'm going to start trying to blend this with the opacity watercolor brush, and it's okay, except it's not okay. It's really hard to handle, even with like extra. Like I just went over there to press it's just a mess. Like that blend, I was trying to get a brighter color, and I just get this terrible blend. It's just blah. And frankly, that tool's not very good for blending. It's more like a discovery tool. I find like this tool's great if you're like not sure what you really want and you want to go like blend some colors together, see what you get. But in this case, I get something really hideous and frankly ugly, and I just want to get rid of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go fly myself over to clipstudiopaint.net and check out one of the tutorials and see what I can get in terms of a brush that will actually function, because as much as I like using presets, sometimes I want to like use somebody else's preset that's really good. So here's their site, the first page of their tutorial thing, and notice there's a lot of stuff on the website and kind of it's all Greek to you, but the more important thing here is this particular little window where it gives you the brush settings. So I'm going to go analyze the brush settings, kind of compare the two, and make a new brush and see how it works, because he demonstrates in that page sort of what you can do with it. So it's you kind of know what you're supposed to get out of it, as opposed to, well, I don't really know what this brush does. So I'm making a new one, pressing on that little icon there to make a new one, typing the name incorrectly, surprisingly, and then I just look at the image over there and try to compare all the settings. Now you'll notice that all the settings are the same, so you click on the button, you click on what I just clicked on just there, and you go look around for more stuff, Basically, you're looking for the options that are set there. They're not all in exact order, but they do go in the order that they're listed based on like what is turned off and what isn't turned on. So if you click on the eye, it actually just shows it onto the panel, but it doesn't actually deactivate the effect. The key here is, like, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not working. For example, this has always been running on 100% opacity despite me pressing that button to turn on like the vision of the opacity on the menu. But anyway, so I'm looking around for more stuff. Let's see, what am I looking for? So one thing I noticed is that this other brush doesn't use mix ground color, which is basically the reason why I got those muddy colors. What it does is it tries to color match and then it paints based off of that. And you can adjust it to be more flexible, but generally speaking, you don't want it on a brush that you want to be simple. So after I got those settings kind of lined up, I try this brush out, and yeah, look at, there's no more like bleedy, blendy stuff. No way to put it. It's more clean. It does things precisely. It's not as, like, sometimes less is more. And a lot of the cases, less is more, actually. And this is one of those instances where less is definitely more, because I'm actually getting the colors I want, and now I can easily blend this kind of softly render the lights on this nose and make it kind of a little bit bulbous and make it pop out a little bit. And I can do that to the chin and stuff like that. And we'll just keep going on a little here, and I'll just keep, at this point I just keep rendering. The point is that ground mixing really was making that brush unusable, and the only thing that I really adjusted on that brush was that setting. So now that I've got to this point, it's quite easy to handle and very easy to use. This is actually a brush that you might want to keep in your repertoire, because it's basically the same brush that most professional artists use in Photoshop for their basic rendering and coloring. A lot of people call it the workhorse brush, where you do everything in it. You can actually do anything with this brush. So I'm gonna sort of demonstrate that a little bit more by going to the line layer and then going above it and referencing it down so I can color the lines. And you see I'm not changing the brush or anything, not doing anything special or doing some fancy layer effects. I'm just coloring over it to change the color of the lines to soften the image a little bit. Granted, I don't pick the best colors for this, but needless to say, it's not hard to change the colors to get a softer look on your thing. Well, not your thing, your piece of work. So don't worry if you do black lines and you're like, but I don't like these black lines, they're too stark, they contrast too much. It's like, well, it's okay, you just color over them later. And since you don't have to worry about marking up the rest of your work, it's easy. So that's pretty much it. This is, I'm just gonna do it a little bit more. Oh, actually, no, I'm gonna color. Anyway, so I'm gonna color the hair a little bit, and then I'm gonna eventually do the hair, this is where this tool shines a lot more. I think my rendering on the skin isn't as great, but my hair rendering is a little bit better, just because you don't have to be as exact. You could just kind of freely stroke all over the place. So sooner or later, gonna get to that point where I get to that. Let's see. Keep zooming in and out. Yeah, one thing to note, that I zoom in and out not just to get a different perspective, because I don't really like it looking at thumbnails. I like making the thumbnails, to be perfectly honest. So I just do the same thing like I did before. I'm actually on a different pencil tool, so here's that watercolor tool again, and just stroke it, stroke, and just follow. I'm basically just following the curves of the lines for each, the closest line curve, and then it simulates it's thicker and the line itself is thicker, so it gives it that bold contrast and I don't know, depth. And I'm just being really lazy with this. I'm not trying to be really precise or anything. But the thing is, the way to detail this, if you wanted to, is just make the brush smaller, and zoom in more and just be more careful with your strokes. But you're not applying any different techniques per se. It's just the same thing on a more precise scale. So if you ever wondered how to get crazier hair, you pretty much do the same thing I'm doing. Pick a light, pick a dark, and just go over it, and then pick colors on whatever you painted and just refine based off of that. So I hope you found this a little bit helpful. Sorry it's a little bit kind of jumbly. I actually recorded this 4 or 5 different times, and it's driving me crazy, so I just wanted to get this out. But if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to ask in the comment section. And check out Manga Studio Sensei and email me or whatever if you want to know something specific, because, you know, I can't answer it unless you tell me. So thanks for watching.